The alarm bells rang loud across the Velkari scanning station. Red lights flashed on every wall. Technician Vorthak jumped from his chair and stared at the big screen in front of him. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Commander Vex Thul," he shouted. "You need to see this right now." Commander Vexthul walked over with slow, heavy steps. His forearms moved in different directions as he checked various control panels. His large eyes focused on the main display. The numbers on the screen made no sense. "What am I looking at?" Vexthul asked. His voice was deep and rough. "A ship, sir. It appeared at the edge of our scanning range about 10 minutes ago. But look at these readings." Vorthak pointed at the data with one of his thin fingers. Vexthul read the information carefully. The ship was using fusion drives. Fusion drives. Those were so old that most space museums didn't even have working models. The hull was made of simple metal plates welded together. No energy shields, no plasma weapons, no quantum computers. "This has to be a mistake," Vexthul said. "Run the scan again." Vorthak pressed several buttons. The scanning beam reached out across space and touched the strange ship again. The same results came back. Old technology, weak materials, simple design. But there was something else. Something that made Vexthul's skin crawl. The ship was moving in a perfectly straight line toward their home worlds. Not toward the outer planets where traders usually stopped. Not toward the mining stations or fuel depots. Straight toward the core systems where billions of Velkari lived. "How fast is it moving?" Vexthul asked. "0.7 light speed, sir. Steady. No changes in course for the last 10 minutes. Vexthul felt cold. Ships didn't travel that fast unless they were in a hurry. And ships with old fusion drives couldn't travel that fast at all. But somehow this one was doing it. "Try to contact them," he ordered. Vorthak sent out radio signals on all the standard frequencies. Old radio waves came back. The kind of communication that ancient civilizations used thousands of years ago. A voice spoke in a language they had never heard before. It sounded rough and simple. Their computers worked hard to translate the words. "This is the UES Defiant. Captain Hyun-Woo Kim commanding. We are entering Velkari space on official business." Vexthul and Vorthak looked at each other. Neither had ever heard of humans before. No species in their database matched that name. "Send a response," Vexthul said. "Tell them to identify themselves and state their purpose." Vorthak sent the message. A few minutes later, another transmission came back. "This is Terran space now. All Velkari forces must withdraw to your original borders. You have 72 hours to comply." The scanning station became very quiet. Everyone stopped working and stared at the main screen. Someone had just told the mighty Velkari Dominion to leave their own territory. "Sir," Vorthak whispered. "Should I contact High Command?" Vexthul nodded. His hands were shaking slightly. In all his years of military service, no one had ever spoken to the Velkari like this. The Dominion controlled 47 star systems. They had conquered over 200 worlds. Their fleet had 12,000 warships. And now a single ship with old technology was giving them orders. The communication link to High Command opened. Admiral Zekmor appeared on the screen. His face was covered in the ritual scars of a veteran warrior. "Report," Zekmor said. "Sir, we have detected an unknown vessel approaching our core systems. The ship identifies itself as human and has demanded that we withdraw from what they call Terran space." Admiral Zekmor was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. The sound was harsh and unpleasant. "Did you say one ship?" he asked. "Yes, sir. One ship. But, sir, there's something strange about it. The technology readings don't match the performance data." "Explain." Vexthul looked at his notes. "The ship appears to be using primitive fusion drives, but it's traveling at 0.7 light speed. The hull is simple metal, but our deep scans can't penetrate it completely. The energy signature is weak but perfectly stable." Zekmor stopped laughing. "Send me all the data." Vorthak transmitted everything they had collected. Admiral Zekmor studied the information for several minutes. His expression changed from amusement to confusion to concern. "Have you tried aggressive scanning?" he asked. "No, sir. Should we? Yes. Use maximum power. I want to know what's really inside that ship. Vorthak increased the scanner power to full strength. The beam reached out toward the human vessel. For a moment, the readings became clearer. They could see the ship's interior structure, corridors, rooms, equipment. Then something impossible happened. The scanner stopped working. Not broken, not damaged. Simply turned off. Sir, Vorthak said with a shaky voice, they just shut down. Our scanners. That's impossible, Zekmor said. Our scanning array is the most powerful in the sector. Nothing can interfere with it from that distance. The scans are completely blocked, sir. We're getting no readings at all from their ship now. Admiral Zekmor was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was harder than before. Commander Vexthul, I'm sending the first Armada to deal with this situation. 500 ships should be enough to handle one primitive vessel. Yes, sir. Should we continue monitoring? Yes. And Commander? Sir? If that ship changes course toward any populated worlds, shoot first and ask questions later. The communication ended. Vexthul turned back to his instruments. The human ship was still there, still moving toward Velkari space, still impossible to scan. Vorthak was working at his station, trying different scanning methods. Nothing worked. The ship had become invisible to their most advanced sensors. Sir, another technician called out, I'm picking up strange energy patterns from the human vessel. What kind of patterns? Vexthul asked. I don't know, sir. The computer can't identify them. They're not matching any known technology in our database. Vexthul felt more worried with each passing minute. In his 30 years of military service, he had seen many different alien technologies. Some were more advanced than Velkari equipment. Some were less advanced. But he had never seen technology that his computers couldn't at least categorize. How long until the first Armada arrives? He asked. 6 hours, sir. 6 hours. Vexthul hoped it would be enough time. The human ship was still approaching. Still, maintaining its impossible speed with its primitive engines. As he watched the display, one thought kept running through his mind. What if the ship wasn't as primitive as it looked? What if the humans were hiding their real capabilities? But that was impossible. No species could fake scanner readings across such a vast distance. No technology could make old fusion drives perform like advanced antimatter engines. Could it? Vexthul decided not to think about that possibility. The first Armada was the pride of the Velkari fleet. 500 of their best warships, commanded by their most experienced officers. They had never lost a battle. One primitive human ship wouldn't change that record. At least, that's what he told himself as he watched the mysterious vessel continue its approach toward the heart of Velkari space. Captain Hyunwoo Kim sat in his command chair and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. The bridge of the UES Defiant was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. His crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. Captain, Communications Officer Ji-hyun Lee called from her station. We're receiving multiple transmission attempts from the Velkari scanning station. Put it on speakers, Hyunwoo said. A rough alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in the Velkari language. The computer quickly translated the words into Korean. Unknown vessel, this is Velkari Command Station Beta 7. You are ordered to identify yourself, state your purpose, and submit to inspection. Failure to comply will result in military action. Ji-hyun looked at her captain. Should I respond, sir? Hyunwoo nodded. Standard first contact protocol. Be polite, but firm. Ji-hyun activated the communication system. She spoke clearly into her microphone, knowing the computer would translate her words into Velkari. Velkari Command Station. This is the UES Defiant of the Terran Space Navy. We are on a diplomatic mission to establish territorial boundaries. We request immediate withdrawal of all Velkari forces from the systems we have designated as Terran space. The response came quickly. The alien voice sounded angry and confused. Terran space? We have no record of any species called Terrans. These systems belong to the Velkari Dominion. You will surrender immediately or face destruction. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. It was always the same with aggressive species. Threats first, questions later. Ji-hyun, he said quietly. Send them our standard information package. Let them know what they're dealing with. Ji-hyun's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. She transmitted a data package containing basic information about humanity, Earth and the Terran colonies. Admiral Seung-min Park walked onto the bridge and took his position at the observer station. He was older than Hyun-woo, with gray hair and serious eyes. He had fought in more space battles than anyone else in the human fleet. Status report, Seung-min said. The Velkari have detected us and are demanding our surrender. Hyun-woo replied. Their scanning station tried to probe us with high-power sensors about 10 minutes ago. And? Tae-yang activated the sensor jammers. They can't see us anymore. Weapons Officer Tae-yang Choi looked up from his station. He was young but highly skilled with all combat systems. Sir, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures approaching our position. Large ships moving fast. How many? Seung-min asked. 512 vessels, sir. Battleship class and larger. They'll reach us in approximately 5 hours and 40 minutes. Hyun-woo turned to his science officer. Yoon-ji, what can you tell us about their fleet composition? Science officer Yoon-ji-yoon studied her displays carefully. She was known throughout the fleet for her ability to analyze alien technology quickly and accurately. Standard Velkari battle formation, sir. Heavy cruisers in the center, destroyers on the flanks, support ships in the rear. Their weapons appear to be plasma-based with some kinetic projectiles. Shields are electromagnetic barriers with particle deflection. Strengths and weaknesses, Seung-min asked. Their ships are heavily armored and well-armed for their technology level, but they rely on predictable tactics and seem to favor direct assault over maneuvering. Their shields are strong against energy weapons but vulnerable to specific frequency attacks. Engineer So Young-han looked up from her station near the back of the bridge. She was responsible for all the ship's systems and modifications. Captain, should I begin combat preparations? Not yet, Hyun-woo said. Let's give diplomacy another chance. Another transmission came from the Velkari. This time, the voice was different, deeper and more authoritative. Human vessel, this is Admiral Zekmore of the Velkari First Armada. You are outnumbered 500 to 1. Surrender now and we will consider allowing your species to serve the Dominion as a client race. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Tactical Officer Min Ho-song shook his head in disappointment. They just don't learn, do they? He said quietly. Hyun-woo stood up from his chair. Ji-hyun, open a channel to the entire Velkari fleet. Channel open, sir. Admiral Zekmore, this is Captain Hyun-woo Kim. I appreciate your offer, but I'm afraid we must decline. The human race has never served anyone, and we don't plan to start now. I'm giving you one final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. You dare refuse the might of the Velkari Dominion? Zekmore's voice was full of rage. We have conquered 200 worlds. Our empire spans 47 star systems. What can one primitive ship do against our entire armada? Hyun-woo looked at his crew. Each officer nodded, indicating they were ready for whatever came next. Admiral, Hyun-woo said calmly. You're about to find out. He signaled Ji-hyun to close the communication channel. The bridge became quiet again. So young, Hyun-woo said. Begin standard modifications to our reactor output. Yes, sir. Bringing antimatter generators to 15% capacity. Tae-yang, prepare weapon systems. Defensive protocols only for now. Weapons ready, sir. Railguns charged and targeting computers online. Minho, I want evasive pattern Delta 7 ready to execute on my command. Evasive patterns programmed and ready, sir. Seung-min moved closer to Hyun-woo's chair. Captain, are you sure about this approach? We could simply jump to hyperspace and avoid the confrontation. Hyun-woo shook his head. Admiral, the Velkari need to understand that humans are not prey. If we run from this fight, they'll think we're weak. They'll follow us back to our colonies. And if we stay, then we teach them a lesson they'll never forget. Yoon-ji called out from her station. Sir, I'm receiving detailed scans of the approaching fleet. Their formation is exactly as predicted. Heavy ships in the center, light ships on the outside. Any surprises? Hyunwoo asked. Negative, sir. Their technology appears to be standard for a species at their development level. No unusual weapons or defensive systems. Taiyang looked up from his weapons console. Captain, should I target their lead ships? Not yet. Let them get closer. I want them to see what happens when you threaten humans. The Velkari fleet continued, approaching. On the main screen, Hyunwoo could see the distant lights of their ships growing brighter. Ji-hyun received another transmission. Sir, Admiral Zekmore is demanding our immediate surrender. He's threatening to destroy us if we don't comply within the next 10 minutes. Response? Hyunwoo asked. Tell him that humans don't surrender. Tell him that if he wants a fight, we'll give him one he'll remember for the rest of his life. Ji-hyun sent the message. A few moments later, Zekmore's angry voice filled the bridge again. So be it, humans. You have chosen death over wisdom. When we are finished with your ship, we will find your home world and make your entire species pay for this insult. The communication ended. So-young looked up from her engineering station. Captain, all systems are ready. Reactor output is stable at 15%. All modifications are complete. Excellent, Hyunwoo said. Now we wait. Minho studied his tactical display. Sir, the Velkari fleet will reach weapons range in approximately 30 minutes. They're maintaining standard battle formation. Good, Seungmin said. Predictable opponents are the easiest to defeat. Hyunwoo sat back in his command chair and watched the approaching enemy fleet. 500 ships against one, the Velkari thought. Those were good odds. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Velkari First Armada moved through space like a massive metal storm. 500 warships in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready to destroy the single human vessel that dared challenge their empire. Admiral Zekmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The human ship appeared as a small red dot surrounded by hundreds of green dots representing his fleet. Distance to target? He asked his tactical officer. 50,000 kilometers and closing, sir. We'll be in weapons range in 2 minutes. Excellent. Signal all ships to prepare for concentrated fire. I want that human vessel destroyed quickly and completely. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Captain Hyunwoo watched the approaching armada with calm eyes. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, making final preparations for the coming battle. Tae-yang, he said to his weapons officer, what's your assessment of their formation? Tae-yang Choi studied his tactical screen carefully. Standard aggressive approach, sir. Heavy cruisers leading, destroyers in support positions, command ships protected in the center. They're planning to overwhelm us with concentrated firepower. Weaknesses? Their formation is rigid, sir. Once they commit to the attack, they'll have difficulty changing tactics quickly. Science Officer Yoon Ji-yoon called out from her station. Captain, I'm detecting energy buildups across their entire fleet. All ships are charging weapons systems. Time to weapons range? Hyunwoo asked. 90 seconds, sir. Hyunwoo turned to his engineer. So-young reactor status? Still operating at 15% capacity, sir. All systems are green. 15%? Admiral Sung-min Park raised an eyebrow. Are you sure that will be enough? Hyunwoo smiled. More than enough. If we used full power, there wouldn't be anything left of them to learn from. Tactical Officer Min-ho Song looked up from his display. Sir, should I execute evasive maneuvers? Not yet. Let them get closer. I want them to think they have us trapped. The Velkari ships continued their approach, weapons glowing with deadly energy. On their bridges, alien officers prepared to witness the destruction of the primitive human vessel. 30 seconds to weapons range, Tae-yang announced. All stations report ready for combat, Ji-hyun said from her communications post. Hyunwoo stood up from his command chair. So-young, bring antimatter reactors to 25%. 25%, aye, sir. The ship's engines suddenly roared with new power. What the Velkari had mistaken for primitive fusion drives revealed their true nature. Pure antimatter engines, operating at less than one-quarter capacity, but already producing more energy than anything in the Velkari fleet. Weapons range in 10 seconds, Taeyang reported. Evasive pattern Delta 7, Hyunwoo ordered. Execute now. The Defiant suddenly accelerated beyond anything the Velkari thought possible. The ship moved sideways, up, down, and forward in a pattern so complex it looked like dancing. G-forces that should have crushed the human crew had no effect at all. Admiral Zekmore stared at his tactical display in shock. What in the void is that ship doing? Sir, it's moving at impossible speeds. Our targeting computers can't lock onto it. All ships fire everything. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles shot out from the Velkari fleet. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and explosive warheads filled the space where the human ship had been moments before. But the Defiant was no longer there. It moved through the attack like water flowing around stones, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy weapons to hit it. How is this possible? Zekmore shouted. No ship can maneuver like that. On the Defiant's bridge, Min Ho-song calmly guided the ship through the enemy fire. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for any other species. Taeyang, Hyunwoo said. Return fire. Railgun projectiles only. Show them what real weapons can do. Taeyang's targeting system locked onto the lead Velkari cruiser. Target acquired, sir. Firing. A single railgun projectile shot out from the Defiant at a significant fraction of light speed. The small metal slug hit the Velkari ship's shields and passed through them like they didn't exist. It punched through the hull, through the armor, and out the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole. The cruiser's reactor exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Direct hit, Taeyang reported. Enemy vessel destroyed. Admiral Zekmore watched in horror as one of his best ships simply vanished. How did they penetrate our shields? Unknown, sir. The projectile velocity was beyond our measurement capabilities. Target. That ship. All weapons concentrate fire on the human vessel. The Velkari fleet tried to focus their attacks, but the Defiant continued its impossible dance through space. Every time they fired, the human ship was somewhere else. Hyunwoo watched the tactical display calmly. Taeyang, pick your targets. I want them to understand that we're not just avoiding their weapons. Yes, sir. Another railgun shot destroyed, a second Velkari cruiser. Then a third, then a fourth. Each shot was perfectly placed. Each hit resulted in total destruction. Sir, Yunji called out, I'm detecting panic communications across the Velkari fleet. Their formation is starting to break apart. They're learning, Shungmin observed. Fear is a powerful teacher. The Velkari ships began to spread out, abandoning their organized formation. Some tried to flank the human vessel. Others attempted to retreat to safe distances. A few brave ships tried to ram the Defiant, only to watch it slip away at the last second. Captain, Ji-hyun said, we're receiving multiple surrender requests from individual Velkari ships. Ignore them for now. We're not finished with the lesson. Taeyang continued his methodical destruction of enemy vessels. Each shot was precise, each target carefully chosen. He wasn't trying to destroy the entire fleet quickly. He was demonstrating human superiority one ship at a time. After 15 minutes of one-sided combat, the Velkari had lost over 100 ships. Not a single human weapon had missed its target. Not one Velkari attack had come close to hitting the Defiant. Admiral, Zekmore stood on his bridge in stunned silence. His perfect fleet was being torn apart by a single enemy vessel that moved like nothing he had ever seen. Sir, his communications officer said with a shaking voice, should we order a full retreat? Zekmore looked at the tactical display. His ships were scattered across thousands of kilometers of space, their formation completely broken. Many captains were already trying to escape the battle. No, he said finally. Signal all ships to continue the attack. We cannot let one primitive vessel defeat the pride of the Velkari fleet. But his words sounded hollow even to himself. This was not a primitive vessel. This was something far beyond anything he had ever encountered. On the Defiant, Hyunwoo watched the continuing chaos in the enemy fleet. Some ships were still trying to fight. Others were fleeing. Most were simply floating in space, their crews too shocked to respond. "Sir," Minho said, "should we pursue the fleeing ships?" "No. Let them go. They'll spread the word about what happened here." Hyunwoo turned to his communications officer. "Ji-hyun, open a channel to the entire Velkari fleet." "Channel open, sir." "Admiral Zekmore, this is Captain Hyunwoo Kim. As you can see, your fleet is no match for human technology. I'm prepared to end this demonstration now, but only if you're ready to listen to reason." The response came quickly, but Zekmore's voice was no longer full of confidence. "What do you want, human?" "I want you to understand that humans are not your enemies, but we will not tolerate aggression against our people or our allies. Withdraw your forces from the disputed systems and we can discuss this situation calmly." There was a long pause before Zekmore replied, "And if we refuse?" Hyunwoo looked at his crew. So Young nodded from her engineering station. Taeyang checked his weapon systems. Minho prepared for more evasive maneuvers. "Then we'll continue this lesson until you understand it completely." Admiral Zekmore stared at the communication panel on his bridge. The human captain was giving him a choice, but it didn't feel like much of a choice at all. His proud fleet was scattered and broken. Over 100 of his best ships had been destroyed by a single enemy vessel. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "what are your orders?" Zekmore looked at the tactical display again. The remaining Velkari ships were trying to regroup, but their formation was chaos. Some captains were requesting permission to retreat. Others wanted to continue fighting. Most were simply waiting for orders that he didn't know how to give. "All ships," he finally said, "reform battle lines. We will show these humans that the Velkari do not surrender." On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Captain Hyunwoo Kim listened to the Velkari communications with disappointment. He had hoped they would choose the peaceful option. "They're going to keep fighting," Communications Officer Ji-hyun Lee reported. "I was afraid of that," Hyunwoo said. "Some species have to learn the hard way." He turned to his crew. "Prepare for Phase 2 of the demonstration." Engineer So Young-han looked up from her station. "Sir, are you sure? Phase 2 might be too much for them to handle. They made their choice. Now they have to live with the consequences." Tactical Officer Minho Song studied his display carefully. "Captain, the Velkari are trying to surround us. They're moving ships to block all escape routes." "Perfect," Admiral Sung-min Park said from his observer station. "Let them think they have us trapped." Hyunwoo nodded to his pilot. "Minho, bring us to a complete stop. Full stop. No evasive maneuvers." "Sir?" Minho looked confused. "Are you sure?" "Do it." The Defiant suddenly stopped moving. It sat motionless in space, surrounded by hundreds of enemy warships. From the Velkari perspective, the human vessel had finally been cornered. "Admiral," Zekmore felt a moment of hope when he saw the human ship stop running. "They're trapped. All ships close to minimum range and prepare for concentrated bombardment." His fleet moved closer, forming a tight sphere around the motionless human vessel. Every weapon in the Armada was aimed at the Defiant. Energy weapons glowed with deadly power. Missile tubes were loaded and ready to fire. "This is it," Zekmore said to his crew. "This is where we show the galaxy that no one challenges the Velkari Empire." On the Defiant, Science Officer Yoon Ji-yoon watched the enemy ships closing in. "Sir, they're surrounding us completely. Distance to nearest enemy vessel is now 5,000 kilometers. "Excellent positioning," Hyunwoo said. "Ji-hyun, open a channel to the entire Velkari fleet." "Channel open, sir." "Admiral Zekmore, this is your final warning. Order your ships to withdraw immediately, or face the consequences." Zekmore's laughter echoed across all communication frequencies. "Final warning? You're surrounded, human. You have nowhere to run." "Admiral," Hyunwoo said quietly, "we never intended to run." He turned to his weapons officer. "Taeyang, activate defensive systems." "Conversion shields to full power." Weapons officer Taeyang Choi's fingers moved quickly over his control panel. "Conversion shields active, sir. All defensive systems online." "What are conversion shields?" Zekmore demanded, listening to the human communications. His science officer checked the sensor readings frantically. I don't know, sir. We've never encountered this technology before. It doesn't matter, Zekmore decided. All ships, fire everything. Destroy that vessel now. The Velkari fleet unleashed everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams, thousands of missiles, and countless particle weapons all struck the human ship at the same time. The space around the Defiant became a ball of pure destruction. For 10 seconds, the bombardment continued. Every weapon in the fleet fired at maximum power. The energy released was enough to destroy an entire moon. Then, something impossible happened. The Defiant's shields didn't just absorb the attack. They converted it into pure energy and redirected it back at the attackers. Every beam, every missile, every particle of destruction was collected, amplified, and sent back to its source. The redirected energy struck the Velkari ships with 3 times the power they had used to attack. Shields that had never failed before collapsed instantly. Hulls that could resist asteroid impacts were torn apart like paper. In 15 seconds, the Velkari lost 150 ships to their own weapons. Admiral Zekmore watched his tactical display in horror as ship after ship vanished from the screen. What happened? What did they do to us? Sir, his science officer said with a shaking voice, they turned our own weapons against us. Somehow they absorbed our entire attack and sent it back. That's impossible. The evidence is right there, sir. We just lost 1/3 of our remaining fleet to our own firepower. The surviving Velkari ships stopped firing immediately. Their crews stared in shock at the human vessel, which sat undamaged in the middle of the destruction it had caused. On the Defiant's bridge, Hyunwoo checked the tactical display. The enemy fleet was now down to less than 250 ships. Many of the survivors were damaged and barely functional. Phase 3, he ordered. Yoonji activated her science scanners and began broadcasting detailed information about every remaining Velkari ship. Ship names, crew numbers, weapon specifications, armor thickness, and even the personal files of individual officers appeared on screens throughout the enemy fleet. Attention Velkari forces, Ji-hyun announced on all frequencies. We have complete information about every vessel in your fleet. We know the names of your crew members. We know the location of your homeworlds. We know the positions of your other fleets. Admiral Zekmore felt cold terror run through his body. The humans weren't just demonstrating superior weapons. They were showing that they had been watching and studying the Velkari for a long time. How do they know all this? He whispered. His intelligence officer was studying the data the humans had transmitted. Sir, this information is completely accurate. Ship specifications, crew records, classified tactical data. They know everything about us. But how? I don't know, sir. Some of this information should be impossible for them to obtain. Yunwoo's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral Zekmore, we've been monitoring your empire for 2 years. We know about your military plans, your territorial expansions, and your treatment of conquered species. We could have stopped you at any time. Then why didn't you? Zekmore asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because we hoped you would choose peace over war. We hoped you would choose wisdom over conquest. Unfortunately, you've proven that hope was misplaced. Tactical Officer Min Ho Song looked up from his display. Captain, several enemy ships are trying to escape the battle area. Let them see how futile that is, Hyunwoo said. Engineer So Young Han activated the gravity manipulation systems. Suddenly, every Velkari ship that tried to flee found its path blocked by impossible gravitational fields. Space itself seemed to bend around them, preventing escape. We can control gravity, Hyunwoo announced to the enemy fleet. We can create black holes, bend space-time, and manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Your ships cannot escape, because we don't want them to escape. The psychological impact was devastating. The Velkari had gone from confident attackers to trapped victims in less than an hour. Their weapons were useless, their shields were worthless, and their escape routes were blocked. Sir, the communications officer on Zekmore's ship said, we're receiving surrender requests from over half our remaining vessels. Zekmore looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him with expressions of fear and desperation. The pride of the Velkari fleet had been reduced to a collection of frightened survivors. "What do we do now, sir?" his tactical officer asked. Zekmore had no answer. In all his years of military service, he had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that could turn their own weapons against them. An enemy that knew everything about them while remaining completely mysterious. An enemy that could have destroyed them all, but chose to demonstrate restraint instead. For the first time in his life, Admiral Zekmore realized that the Velkari Empire might not be the most powerful force in the galaxy. The remaining Velkari ships floated in space like broken toys. Less than 200 vessels survived from the original 500, and most of those were damaged. Their crews sat in stunned silence, waiting for the humans to finish what they had started. Admiral Zekmore stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed the impossible truth. One human ship had destroyed or disabled most of his fleet without taking a single point of damage in return. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the human captain is requesting to speak with you." Zekmore nodded slowly. He didn't trust his voice to remain steady. Captain Hyunwoo Kim's image appeared on the main screen. He looked calm and professional, as if he had just finished a routine training exercise instead of the most one-sided battle in Velkari history. "Admiral Zekmore," Hyunwoo said, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." "What do you want? From us?" Zekmore asked. "I want you to understand what just happened here. This wasn't a battle. This was a demonstration. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first minute, but we chose to show restraint. Why? Because humans believe in giving other species a chance to make better choices." On the bridge of the UES Defiant, engineer So Young-han was monitoring the Velkari fleet systems. Her screen showed detailed schematics of every enemy ship. "Captain," she said, "I'm ready to proceed with the final demonstration." Hyunwoo nodded. "Do it." So Young's fingers moved over her control panel with precise movements. Across space, something impossible began to happen to the Velkari fleet. One by one, every Velkari ship simply stopped working. Engines shut down. Weapons powered off. Life support systems continued to function, but everything else went dark. Admiral Zekmore felt his ship's engines die. The lights on his bridge dimmed to emergency power. His weapons officer frantically pressed buttons on his control panel, but nothing responded. "What's happening?" Zekmore demanded. "Sir, all our systems are shutting down. I can't restore power to anything except life support." Across the fleet, the same thing was happening to every Velkari vessel. Captains shouted orders that couldn't be carried out. Engineers ran to their stations to find equipment that wouldn't respond to their commands. "Attention Velkari fleet," Communications Officer Ji Hyun Lee announced from the Defiant. "We have just demonstrated our ability to remotely shut down your technology. We are not using electronic warfare or computer hacking. We simply understand your systems well enough to turn them off." The psychological impact was complete. The Velkari crews realized they were completely helpless. Their ships had been turned into floating metal containers by an enemy they couldn't fight, couldn't escape from, and couldn't understand. Admiral Zekmore slumped in his command chair. "How is this possible?" Science Officer Yoon Ji-yoon's voice came over the communication system. "For 2 years we have been studying every aspect of Velkari technology. We know how your reactors work, how your computers function, and how your weapons operate. We understand your science better than you do. We infiltrated your communication networks," Tactical Officer Min Ho-song added. "We monitored your military exercises. We analyzed every piece of technology you use. We could have done this at any time," Weapons Officer Tae Yang Choi said. "We could have shut down your entire empire without firing a single shot." The full horror of their situation began to dawn on the Velkari. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had been watching, studying and preparing for years. The Velkari Empire, with all its power and pride, had been completely vulnerable the entire time. Hyun Woo's image reappeared on Zekmore's screen. "Admiral, I want you to think carefully about what happens next. You have a choice to make. What choice? Zekmore's voice was barely a whisper. You can report this incident to your government and recommend peaceful negotiations with humanity. Or you can try to pretend this never happened and continue your aggressive expansion. And if we choose the second option? Then the next time we meet, there will be no demonstrations, no warnings, no second chances. Admiral Seung-min Park stepped forward on the Defiance Bridge. His image joined Hyunwoo's on the Velkari screens. I am Admiral Seung-min Park of the Terran Space Navy, he said. This ship, the UES Defiant, is one of our oldest vessels. It was built 15 years ago using outdated technology. The Velkari crews listened in growing horror. We sent it alone as a courtesy, Seung-min continued, to show respect for your empire and give you a chance to respond reasonably to our territorial claims. Next time, Hyunwoo said, we'll send a proper fleet. Ji-hyun began broadcasting a message on all Velkari frequencies, not just to the defeated fleet, but to the entire Dominion communication network. Citizens of the Velkari Empire, she announced, humanity offers you friendship and cooperation. We have no desire to conquer your worlds or harm your people, but we will not tolerate aggression against ourselves or our allies. The message continued. We call upon your leaders to meet with human representatives to discuss the peaceful division of disputed territories. We offer to share some of our scientific knowledge in exchange for an end to your military expansion. Your current path leads only to destruction, Yunji added. We have seen many aggressive empires throughout the galaxy. They all made the same mistake. They all believed that conquest was the only way to grow strong. True strength, Tae-yang said, comes from wisdom, from choosing when to fight and when to make peace. From knowing that the greatest victories are the ones that never need to be fought, Minho concluded. So Young began restoring power to the Velkari ships, one system at a time. Engines came back online. Weapons recharged. Communications were restored. We are returning control of your vessels, she announced. Use this opportunity wisely. Admiral Zekmore felt his ship come back to life around him. His officers looked at their stations with amazement as every system returned to normal function. Admiral, his communications officer said, we're receiving messages from High Command. They want a full report on the engagement. Zekmore stared at the image of Captain Hyunwoo on his screen. The human officer waited patiently for his response. Captain Kim, Zekmore said finally, I will recommend that the Velkari government open negotiations with your people immediately. That's a wise decision, Admiral. But I have one question. Why did you show us mercy? You could have destroyed us all, Hyunwoo smiled slightly. Because, Admiral, that's what humans do. We believe that every species deserves a chance to choose a better path. Even after we threatened you? Especially then. Fear makes people do foolish things. We prefer to give them time to reconsider. The Defiant began to move away from the Velkari fleet, its impossible engines powered up for the jump to hyperspace. Admiral Zekimore, Hyunwoo said as his ship prepared to leave, tell your people that humanity is willing to be their friend, but also tell them that we are ready to be their enemy if they choose war over peace. And if they choose peace, then they'll discover that humans are the best allies they could ever hope for. The UES Defiant vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a fleet of humbled Velkari ships and a story that would spread across the galaxy. Admiral Zekmore composed his report to High Command as his fleet began the long journey home. He knew that some officials would want to continue the war. Others would demand revenge for their defeat. But he also knew that any leader with sense would realize the truth. The Velkari Empire had encountered a species far more advanced and powerful than themselves. A species that offered friendship instead of conquest. A species called humanity. The balance of power in the galaxy had just changed forever, and most civilizations didn't even know it yet.